What's going on, guys? My name is Matt and I was recently challenged by the sponsors of today's video, Intel and Corsair, to put together a gaming PC featuring one of the bundle deals that are available right now through what is called Intel Gamer Days. Whether you're shopping for a new PC or just an upgrade to your system, Intel Gamer Days has you covered. The system in today's video is coming in at a price point of $2,000, and not only does it perform amazingly, but it also looks really nice. What's awesome is Corsair and their pre-built company Origin have a number of different deals featuring Intel processors going on right now, and I'll be discussing them throughout this video. Getting back to the PC, the system is great for 4K gaming, streaming, and even video editing. It really is a jack of all trades, and if you'd like a full build guide for a system like this, then let me know in the comments below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the parts that make up this $2,000 gaming beast. Let's start things off with the CPU and cooler, which is what this build is centered around. For the CPU, I knew I wanted something that was going to be very powerful for gaming, but would also be good for other tasks. Because of this, I decided to go with one of Intel's latest and greatest processors, which is the 11th gen Core i5-11600K. This is a 6-core, 12-thread CPU running on the Rocket Lake architecture. With this kind of CPU, you're going to be able to game at high resolutions and refresh rates and be able to do other CPU-intensive tasks like video editing. With a base and boost clock of 3.9 and 4.9 GHz respectively, this chip is pretty darn fast out of the box. And what's cool is that if you have enough cooling headroom, then you can actually overclock this guy for even more performance, and that is where Corsair comes in. Right now, if you bundle an Intel CPU with one of Corsair's coolers, you're going to save a decent chunk of change, and more info on the coolers and CPUs available for this discount will be in the description, so make sure to check that out. The cooler I went with is the Corsair H115i Elite Capellix. This is a 280mm all-in-one liquid cooler that looks and performs amazingly. It comes with two 140mm RGB fans, and the pump block alone has 33 Capellix LEDs. What's even cooler is Corsair includes two interchangeable faceplates, one in white and one in black, to give you even more customization options. If you can't tell, I was going for a white, black, and gray theme for this build, so the white plate fits in perfectly. Corsair AIOs are legendary, and this 280mm cooler is more than enough for cooling the 11600K, even when overclocked, and it also gives you enough cooling headroom to go all the way up to something like an 11900K in the future. Also, this AIO comes with a Commander Pro, which I plugged all of my fans and RGB cables into so I could control them through iCUE. Moving on to the motherboard, this was a bit of a tough decision, but after some deliberation, I decided to go with the ASRock Z590 Steel Legend, and let me tell you, I have no regrets. This board offers a ton of features and value for the money that really isn't rivaled by many other boards. It has 4 DIMM slots, 4 M.2 slots, one of which is for Wi-Fi, plenty of PCIe expansion, and the list goes on. What's really nice is the power delivery on this board punches well above its weight class, and the lighting on this board looks amazing, especially the underglow on the right side of it. I/O is also really great on this board with USB 3 and USB-C front panel connectors, and decent back panel I/O with nice stuff like 2.5 gigabit LAN. Overall, this board worked great in this build, and I think the color scheme also worked well with all of the other parts. So now let's talk about RAM. I would have loved to use some RGB memory, but because of the big AIO I went with and the placement of it, I needed low profile RAM. In many gaming builds, I go with 16GB, but for a high-end build like this one, I decided to go with 32GB as that makes the most sense at this budget. This is a 2x16GB kit of Corsair's Vengeance LPX DDR4 RAM. This RAM is running at 3200 MHz, and the timings are decent at CL16. This kit is a great value for the money, and 32GB is more than enough for any game out there and enough for other tasks like streaming and editing. What's also nice is that because this is a 2-stick kit and there are 4 DIMM slots on the board, this means upgrading to 64GB should be as easy as popping in 2 more 16GB sticks. Next, let's talk about the SSD. While I didn't go with a Gen 4 drive, I did go for a high-quality NVMe M.2 SSD in the form of the Corsair MP400. This is a 1TB drive that offers a lot of value for the money and performs amazingly. For gaming, this is all you really need, and with 2 other M.2 slots for storage, upgrading is stupidly simple. 1TB is plenty for your OS, applications, and a decent-sized games library, but again, upgrading storage is very simple to do in the future, which can be in the form of an SSD or even a large mechanical drive if you need a lot of mass storage. Now let's talk about the graphics card, and yes, I know GPUs are very difficult to get a hold of right now, but I'm hopeful the situation will clear itself up in the coming months. For a higher end build like this, you need a powerful graphics card, and what I went with is just that. This is the Nvidia RTX 3080 Founders Edition. The RTX 3080 is one of the highest performing cards on the market, and if you can manage to snag one at MSRP, then it's well worth it. The Founders Edition, like all 3080s, has 10GB of video memory, but unlike most board partner cards, this version has a very unique cooler. There's one fan on each side, creating a very interesting airflow pattern, and while this is on the smaller end of cooler designs for a 3080, just holding it makes you realize how dense this card is and how much metal is being used to help cool this beast of a card. You probably have a good understanding of this card's performance at this point, but there will be benchmarks at the end of the video, so make sure to stick around for that. Now let's talk about the power supply. What I went with is the Corsair CX750F RGB, and as the name implies, this is a 750 watt power supply that's also high quality and reliable. It's fully modular and comes in black or the white colorway that you see here. What's also a nice touch is the white version comes with white cables, and yes, that is RGB on the fan, which is fully customizable and almost acts like underglow, creating a nice effect. 750 watts is enough for this configuration, but if you're trying to push every component to the max with overclocking, going for something like an 850 watt power supply might be a good idea. What I went with is the Corsair 4000X RGB in white. The relatively new 4000 series of Corsair cases are absolutely amazing and some of my favorite mid towers on the market right now. This 4000X comes with 3 included RGB fans, and even though part of the front panel is glass, there is still plenty of room for airflow on either side. This case has a power supply basement, lots of room for cable management, great fan and radiator support, and the list goes on. If you're wanting more airflow though, Corsair does have an airflow version of this case, which I'll link in the description of this video along with all of the other parts. All in all, this PC uses all high quality parts, and at the $2,000 price point, this PC is striking a good balance between performance and looks. Pretty much all the RGB lights and fans can be controlled through the Corsair iQ software, giving an insane level of customization and control of the look of your PC. The combo of the unlocked i5, Corsair cooler, and the Founders Edition 3080 provides a ton of power and cooling headroom. One other thing to mention about Intel Gamer Days is the fact you can get deals on pre-builts and laptops featuring Intel processors. This means that if you're wanting a new PC and don't want to go through the trouble of building one, then this is a good opportunity to save some money. For example, Origin is running a few different promotions on their Intel-based laptops and desktops, which will again be linked in the description with all of the other deals, so make sure to check them out. So now that you have an understanding of the system and the parts in it, let's go ahead and get into the benchmarks and temps of the system. You'll be able to see real-time temps in each of the benchmarks in the top left, so let's get into them. Let's start things off with Borderlands 3, which is a hard to run AAA title. I tested this using the built-in benchmark at 4K with the highest preset. Doing this resulted in a 67 FPS average with 1% lows of 46. This was great to see the system could max out a title like Borderlands 3 at 4K with an average above 60. Next is an esports title, Rainbow Six Siege. I tested this at 4K max settings using the built-in benchmark. Doing this resulted in a 262 FPS average with 1% lows of 118. Obviously, this PC is overkill for a game like Rainbow Six, but it does show that even for an esports title, you can play them at 4K max with still impressive frame rates. Fortnite is next, which I tested at 4K Pro settings with a few other things turned up. Going into a Team Rumbles match, over the course of the game, I saw an overall average of 185 with 1% lows of 78. Keep in mind this is an overall average, so the FPS was a bit lower during intense combat. Next up is another AAA title, Shadow the Tomb Raider, which I tested at 4K max settings using the built-in benchmark. This resulted in a 98 FPS average with 1% lows of 58. This was great to see another AAA title maxed out at 4K. Finally, I tested Doom Eternal, which MSI Afterburner wasn't working with for some reason. In this game at 4K max, I saw the FPS bounce between 80 and 100 most of the time, and the experience was very smooth. Overall, the performance on the system is amazing, and these benchmarks show that most any game is going to run at 4K max settings with 60 plus FPS. So now that you've seen the benchmarks, it's time to start wrapping this video up. Thanks again to Corsair and Intel for sponsoring this video, which coincides with Intel Gamer Days 2021, an exclusive event featuring great deals and discounts on Intel Core-powered PCs and processor bundles. Whether you're shopping for a complete new gaming PC or a powerful upgrade to bring your system up to date, Intel Gamer Days has you covered, and for more info, head to the link at the top of the description. So yeah guys, I think this wraps this video up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, this is Matt from Tech by Matt, signing out.